Hey guys, welcome back to the Majestic 120 restoration project. This is the last day I'm going to be working on it for a while, I suspect, because the weather's improving and parts I ordered for other projects are arriving tomorrow. So I was hoping to get as much done as I could today, so I replaced a whole bunch of capacitors. Went to turn the set on, and I get nothing. I get a raster, but no sign of reception. I did a quick visual inspection of my work, and I was pretty methodical. Although I replaced a bunch of parts, I just did them one at a time and double-checked my work. So I went to my old standby, the resistance chart from Sam's Photo Fact, which actually matches this chassis a little better than the riders I've been going off of. In particular, for the riders, they show a 12 AU7 for the sync output and sync amp, whereas I have a 6SN7, which is what the Sam's has, so that made me feel a little better. So I started going through it, and since I have no video, I thought I would check the video amp, and lo and behold, I found a problem on, I think it was the last pin I checked, pin 7. Should be 1 meg. Well, I did replace that resistor right there. And, well, after working on this for a few hours, I guess my eyes got tired. Plus, to be fair, I did reach into the correct parts bin, so at some point in the past, I put this in the wrong parts drawer over here. So I reached into the 1 mega ohm drawer and pulled one out and popped it in, and I just saw a brown, a green, and a black, and figured it must be 1 meg, but no, take a closer look. 1 meg should be brown, black, green. What do we have? Brown, green, black. That's a 15 ohm resistor, not a 1 meg resistor. So let's replace that, see if it makes a difference. Alright, that got us back in action. Now, the only thing that's a little disappointing is, after replacing another dozen caps, it's not a whole lot better. It's better, but not dramatically. The sync is still a little flaky. Yeah, the sound's better. Sounds definitely better. They did replace all the caps and resistors around the audio amp, except for that guy, but all this has been rebuilt.
I would not encourage further encounters. I don't think we can avoid them.
What I was really hoping to take care of is this ringing problem on the left. I replaced the caps around the damper tube, swapped out the damper tube. Nothing has had any impact whatsoever. But we'll keep going. I still have not replaced any of the electrolytics in that guy up there. One other development, though, is I'm not using a brightener anymore. I took out my Suncor CR70 and just went through all the rejuvenation tools. And like with the recent Predicta CRT, it was only the manual restore to the most intense rejuvenation technique available with that device that really did the trick. It got it up to where if you're running it at the normal 6.3, you're just at the edge of green. Wow. Speaking of worn out, let's see if I can get it on camera here, how baked that electron gun is. That is the most baked gun I have ever seen. It's practically brown. So, I think I've pounded on it enough. I don't want to completely burn the thing out. I have replacements, so if it comes to it, I can replace it. The main two issues I have right now is obviously that ringing on the side. Also, the vertical hold is it's kind of flaky, and we get the vertical retrace lines pretty visible too, even when it's sort of locked. They're kind of just some jagged lines up at the top. I did work on a vertical circuit though. There's not a whole lot to it, but so which gets me back to the sync separator, which I also pretty much fully worked on. It's that guy right there. There's I replaced all the paper caps. There's one ceramic cap. That guy right there, 220 picofarad. Those are generally super reliable. I could try swapping out the tube. I tested all these tubes on a tester, and they tested fine, but it would be the first time swapping out a tube made some improvements. So I'll try putting a new 6SN7 in there and see if that helps. And I will continue on. I think I just have one electrolytic and 2 paper caps left down in here, and that might be just about it. There's one more tucked in up here on the controls. There are no paper caps in the IF. So yeah, I'm just about done recapping this. Hey, you know what? I did not check that tube. The reason why is I didn't even realize it was there. It's completely underneath the CRT yoke housing. I'm not even sure how you get at it. Sure, I can take this tube and get it out of the way, but man, there's very little height clearance. I'm going to have to get a screwdriver in there and kind of pry it out. And while we're looking at tubes, I wanted to point out something. So this is the original 6AV5, the Majestic branded that came with this. What's currently in the socket is a 6AV5A made by RCA. It's a later generation, a little bit beefier specs. That's what I was talking about in an earlier segment about how later 6AV5s are much larger. Plate structure itself looks to be the same height, but it's a bit wider, and there's certainly a larger glass envelope, which will help it dissipate heat better. I dug the tube out. It's Majestic branded, so very likely the original. And it's bad. It's very weak. So let's try replacing that. So after replacing all these old caps and out-of-spec resistors, this set's going to be playing just great, right? Not so much. Part of the reason I did this was to illustrate the difference between shotgunning and troubleshooting. Honestly, it's not a whole lot better than after my initial replacement of a few filter caps and a few paper caps and critical circuits. The main problem being that it's washed out on the left side and is finally what I would call good on the right hand side. And under bright lights, of course, we have a very faded picture tube. At least the sound is fairly good. Alright, so time maybe to use a little bit of test equipment or a little thinking. So there's two reasons why there can be a ripple on the left hand side. One, ringing in the yoke circuit, meaning the deflection current is not even. It's not being evenly deflected, it's being stretched and squished. Usually you can tell that just by using a test pattern or looking carefully at a display, at a visible image, because it's not just getting light and dark. If it's ringing, it's going to be getting squished and stretched, so there'll be distortions where areas, like if there was a fence or something, it'd be really obvious, or some geometric pattern that it wasn't, that it was being distorted. The other possibility is there's ringing in the video. Now that's easy to determine because we can simply say ground the input to the video amp or set it to some fixed voltage, and we should just get uniform gray across the screen. So let's try doing that first. If it's ringing in the yoke, that's a little bit trickier because I've already worked on the damper circuit. But sometimes they put some components in the yoke itself, in particular a capacitor, to help with ringing. So for example, there's a 30 picofarad 2000 volt cap in here. Generally those are ceramic and just don't go bad. And where the heck is the yoke on this? Oh, I see it's buried in here. This is the guy I'm talking about. 75 picofarad, 1.5 kilovolt, plus minus 5%. That cap is pretty critical to prevent ringing, so we want to check that. I doubt I have one on hand, but I might have something similar I can cobble together if it's bad. I went back over the horizontal circuitry, in particular the damper and horizontal output tube circuitry. There were some resistors out of spec. These, not terribly, about 20%, 25%, so I went ahead and replaced those. I don't think that's a smoking gun, but I don't think it will hurt to replace them. It might improve things slightly. Then while I had this side off again, so I could get at this stuff, I thought I would circle back to where I started out this project and take a look at the other electrolytic. We call it two cans up here. I only replaced one of them. I didn't the other, so I just removed that one. And I have it on the bench now. That one was not held in with a twist lock. That was held in with a collar, so it was easy to remove the wiring and extract the entire thing. And I thought I would test it. After all, we've had this set running for a few hours now in total, so you'd think if it could form up, it would have formed up by now. Well, this particular section should be 8 microfarad, good for 450 volts. Alright, well, a few things. First off, I can't even measure capacitance on it. It just doesn't register, which is a pretty good indication that it's a very leaky cap. Or maybe there's just a hint of something, but you should get a nice solid pie wedge when you get the right capacitance value on the bridge. Alright, so let's check for leakage. As the light bulb should only go on briefly as I go through the ranges, and I'm only at 200 volts and it's not going out. This should be good for up to 450 volts, and we have excessive leakage at only 200. So even after running all this time, it still has really high internal leakage, so much so I can't properly measure the capacitance on it. That's another good indication too. With this tester, there's two sides to this neon bulb. When it charges up, the light should go out, and when I go back to 0 on the dial, the other side of the neon light should light up and fade away as it discharges through the circuit. And there's no discharge, meaning it didn't hold a charge. So even though this capacitor is not directly connected to the horizontal drive circuitry, generally on TVs of this vintage, all the circuits interact with one another to some extent. So if there's excessive ripple in one circuit, it could work its way all through the power supply and affect other circuits. And two of these other sections are even more significant capacitance, so let's check the 40 microfarad at 400. It's a square here. Let's see. So 40 microfarad at 450 volts. Slowly fading. May go out if we wait long enough, but again, it should be good for all the way up to 450, and even at 400, that thing is just glowing like crazy. At least there was a little bit of a discharge there. So it's holding some charge. If I try to check for capacitance, nope, no dice. The eye just never does anything. Alright, so generally since these caps are all in the same can, if one's bad, generally they're all bad. So anyway, let's check the final one. So the one with no symbol should be 40 microfarad at 450 again. That would be this guy. Again, can't get indication on the bridge, and leakage. Hey, went out at 200. So a little healthier than the others, but at 400 volts, it's... And again, I've had this set running in total, I'd say at least 3 hours, maybe longer, and at least that is a more respectable charge. It took a while to fade out. But if they haven't formed up by now, to the point where I can measure them at least, they're not going to. It's been my experience. So, we shall be replacing all the sections of this. And now, since we've got the tester out, let's check this guy that we disconnected way back when. Remember, this one was actually getting warm. That's why I replaced it right away. Alrighty, this section I'm connected to now is also 40 at 450. Look at that. Crazy leaky at only 100 volts. Not surprising when I had full voltage on this thing. That cap was getting warm. Doesn't hold a charge either. Totally shot. Alright, it's kind of crazy looking, but I do have new caps installed here. 3 on this terminal strip, and one I put down below. It's cathode bypass on the audio output tube. I figured I would just put it down here. I would never leave it like this. I'm just doing it now because I'm still hoping to get a package from Adaptacap soon, and I'm curious to try out some of their samples, because one of them, or actually their main product, should work perfectly in here. It should line up with these mounting holes and have place to mount 4 electrolytics and run the wires to them, so it'd be a perfect application for it. So that's why I just kind of tack these in here. I was also mistaken about something else, that I thought the 2 main filter caps were in here, but no, one of them is, and the other one was in here. So that should improve the filtering on the supply for the entire set. Also, one of the caps, the small guy, originally was an 8 microfarad, I put in a 10, is somewhere where they did the horizontal circuit. The wire goes around and around and around and around and around, comes over to here, to 47K, that goes off to some stuff. That is this guy down here. So that's your main B plus there, 275. We go through a 1K decoupling resistor to the 8 microfarad, and it goes over, and it looks like it supplies the plate of one side of the horizontal oscillator, and, well, somewhat indirectly, the other plate of the horizontal oscillator. So if there's ripple on that, because that cap wasn't doing its thing, and neither was that, we would definitely be getting some ripple on the B plus that would couple all the way over to the plates of the horizontal oscillator, which could be causing the problem. So I'm going to reinstall this side plate, and let's fire it up again. Alright, unless I really screwed up my repairs, we should see some improvement. Wow, that's looking considerably better. Way too much width. But man, what a difference. The vertical hold works better. Brightness and contrast respond better. That is more like it. It's not perfect though, there's still a little bit of ringing here, but again we have way too much width. I don't recall seeing a width control on a set though. Scratch my comment about the screen having way too much width. No, it does not. I forgot that this set has what is known as a double D mask, meaning it's like two Ds back to back. The broadcast image is, of course, rectangular with a 4:3 aspect ratio, but some marketing guys came up with the idea of, hey, we can boast that we have the most square inches of screen real estate if we use the full width and sacrifice the corners of the image. So that's what they did with this set. You can imagine if you're watching, say, a sporting event and the score is shown in the corner, you might be a little annoyed because you're not going to get to see it, so it's sort of cheating, but anyways, it does seem that the screen geometry is indeed correct. Here it is after twiddling around with the controls for a while. These are looking better and better. There is a little bit of a ripple in the horizontal. Kind of comes and goes. Seems to be worse if I crank the contrast up. And I get the best sound when the picture is kind of off. And this set has a split carrier, so separate IF for sound and video. It probably needs a little bit of an alignment touch-up. But it's close. It's close. Now the sets are working pretty well. I just couldn't bring myself to put the chassis back in the cabinet with all that surface corrosion. So, I'm going to leave off here, and next time we're going to pick up with a deep dive into detailing. Thanks for watching.